Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of, again, I'm going to keep saying it, Greg, the number one Turbonomic podcast on the entire internet. And the internet's a big place. The Greg and Joe Turbo Show. As always, I'm your host, Joe, joined by the great and powerful Greg.
The great and powerful. All right. I like it.
Spent a lot of time thinking about this before we recorded today.
Good. I think all the listeners are here just for the introduction to figure out what you're going to call me.
I'm going to run out of words. I'm a man of few words, so this is tough. But today we're very lucky to be joined by one of our product managers from our public cloud team, my favorite product manager, for sure.
From our favorite platform team, right?
Absolutely. But Vidushi, thank you so much for joining. I know you're super busy, so we appreciate the time. But maybe we can just start by introduce yourself to our listeners here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here.
We're glad you're here.
And this also reminds me of a time when we were doing that enterprise design thinking project together.
Yes.
It was really fun until Jeremy dished us, but anyway. Well, so hello everybody. This is Vidushi Bansal here. I'm a product manager at IBM Turbonomic. My main focus is towards the cloud aspect of our product. And lately this year, I've been focusing a lot on, how we can read the cloud provider bills efficiently and extract the core data or the meaningful data that would really help our users to take informed decisions. So that's been the main focus this year a lot. But other than that, anything related to the different pricing models, the cloud discounts, such as reserved instances, savings plans, etc., they all fall under my purview.
Vidushi, before we get into talking about that, can you tell us a little bit more about your background? Where have you been before you came and landed here at IBM? So we've been so fortunate to have you here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when I look back, it's been an interesting journey here at Turbonomic. I started here in the test engineering team.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got Turbonomic got acquired by IBM, a couple of months after down the line, I was also transitioning to product management. So it's been great so far. And prior to Turbonomic, I was working as a software engineer in more very startups back in California.
Oh, okay.
And then I just moved here. So yeah, I mean, and I just got to work with amazing folks like you. So it's been a pretty win and great experience so far being in product management.
We didn't even pay her to say that, by the way. Great people like us, just throwing that out there. We appreciate that, Vidushi. Thank you.
So you said you're working in California. Where are you hailing from now? Is it still California?
Sorry?
You said from California. Is that where you are now? Where are you located?
I was in the Bay Area. That's the hub for engineers, I would say. Kind of a dream heaven place, but yeah. So I moved I got married and then I moved here to New York City.
Oh, okay. So you're in New York now. Cool.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker now.
The weather's not as nice, I'm going to be honest, as California. California's got New York beat on the weather for sure.
I would say we at least get to experience different seasons, right?
Oh, people say that. Listen, people who have to deal with brutally cold winters say that as the thing to make themselves feel better. Well, at least we get seasons. I like to see snow on TV. I live in Florida. I'm very happy that we have 1.5 seasons here. It's hot or less hot, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, we can't even really claim at this point that we don't get hurricanes because we've got one coming up here now, don't we?
That's true, and it's crazy that you guys are going to have just the same amount of hurricanes as we've had this year.
Yeah,
which is wild, but
total counts equal.
Anyways,
yes.
So I guess maybe we could start off by I know you're talking about you've been really focused on sort of the pricing models for the public clouds, and I guess maybe kind of go into or give us a little bit of information on sort of that work in particular, what did it start with, and why the need to, I guess, sort of transition or update the way that we're doing this today? What's the background on that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me start with, so when it comes to data, there is a good news and there is a bad news. The good news is that there is a lot of data to work with, right? So we can really like dive deep into the data and extract, like create and be creative with that. But the bad news is that we have a lot of data to work with.
Wait, you said that was the good news.
Right. And apparently for our users, I think that's turning out to be a bad news. Like there is a huge amount of data, mountains and mountains of data to work with. So you really have to, think about how do you want to slice and dice and make it more meaningful. And so that's the thing. Like for our users, the journey hasn't been really easy to understand the cloud bills. And if we just pull up any FinOps report, right? So cost allocation, cost visibility has been the top 5 problems consistently that organizations are facing around cloud. There is a lack of cost governance. The organizations, they don't know what they're committing to. They don't know how they are spending and what they are spending on, right? And you can't really manage the cost unless you have a good insight into where you're spending on. Right? And we have seen that trend even with our users, right? When we go and talk to them and discuss about, adopting different cost optimization strategies, taking different cloud actions, they have a problem that they are facing even before when it comes to that. And that's it. And that's they need a good insight, clarity, transparency in what their cloud infrastructure is, where they're allocating their dollars in cloud.
Yeah, I think one of the topics that we hit on when we spoke to somebody who you also know, Kevin Lamb, was that not only what are we spending the dollars on, but are we spending the right dollars?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Are we investing in the right platforms? Do we have the right user adoption in certain areas? Are we using the right services to support the applications that we're bringing to market, right? And something that really kind of opened my mind, and I know we're rehashing a topic we already spoke about on the show, was the idea that product teams, such as yourself, right, that are putting out an application or putting out some kind of a service for the world to use, have to take into account if somebody's going to run this in cloud, what's the real cost that they'll have to that they'll incur to run our platform using service X or service Y in the cloud, and having that responsibility to bringing something to market that's going to use those services and incur those costs to keep that low and at the right cost and spending that right dollar.
Yeah, exactly, totally. And you got to fix it, right? Before it turns out to be a pretty massive and enormous costly problem for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that turns into I think what I call something like tech debt, right? We didn't expect that it was going to cost us that much. At some point, we're going to have to refactor this and rip that out and put this back in. When will we do that? Who knows? We've got all these other features people are screaming about. We'll fix the cost problem later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, too, right? I mean, when we talk about this concept, this big idea of digital transformation, right, and moving to cloud services. I mean, as you said, like companies are struggling to just even understand the bill, let alone control it, right? And it's like, I think we've seen that there's been sort of like a correction or an overcorrection in a lot of cases where folks are now pulling away from the cloud because of the idea of the cost is just so overwhelming. And it's not necessarily because maybe it's too expensive, but just because they don't have a reliable way to understand the cost, because you can't really optimize if you don't first understand what you're spending. And so I think for a lot of people, it's just easier to say, you know what, we'll just go back to on-prem. It was much simpler then. We'll just buy a ton of hardware. And so I think, again, the work that you and the rest of the product team are doing to really sort of help customers kind of be able to manage that first step of just understanding the overall cost, getting accurate costing data in such a way that it's easy to consume.
Yeah.
Allows them to then take that next step of, okay, now we understand the bill. Now we can start the optimization process. And this becomes a less scary thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cloud has made our lives easy, but the cloud bills haven't, I would say. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, in the conversations you've had with customers, or maybe just in your experience in general, How many people are looking at those cloud bills line by line going, that line right there, that's the one I'm focused on?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So if you pick out any of the cost exports or the cost and usage reports, you at least have like what? Hundreds, thousands, 100,000s, even like easily up to millions lines of row items in that spreadsheet, and with hundreds of columns. So it's really impossible for a person to really extract the core data that they're looking into, right? And let's not forget that these bills, they keep changing all the time. It's not like we got it once and that's it, boom. In fact, for some cloud providers, we can get those changes in the bill for up to multiple times a day.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So
And,
yes.
and what you're telling me is that identifier big long GUID isn't enough to figure out what that line is representing.
It's extremely tough. It's impossible, right? You can still do it 1 day, 2 day, and so how long do you want to keep doing that?
Right.
Yeah, it's not scalable at the end of the day, right? It's just right.
I've seen people take and even the way that we did it when I was at Xerox, when we first started doing this, was we just take that bill, we'd split it out into an Excel spreadsheet and slice it and dice it up in there, and then just apply that same slicing and dicing month over month, just at least to wrap it around, like, let's assign these specific costs to specific stakeholders. But we had no idea what all of those individual pieces within that piece that we cordoned off to charge back or show back to those stakeholders, what it meant, what it represented, or even that it was going up or down, right? We eventually got to that point where we could say that the cost is fluctuating. It's never gone down. It's always gone up. But we never really knew we had visibility or an understanding of what those things meant, why they were there. For a number of reasons. I think that primarily the biggest one why that we didn't have that visibility was because we weren't charged with having that visibility. It was just make sure you capture and represent. That was all that was all our we were charged with. That was our task. So getting after the next step of understanding what the right dollar is, what the actual dollar I'm spending is, and then what do I do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have that understanding, and then you can proceed on to, for next steps, which is actually what you're looking for to safely reduce your cost. But yeah, and let's not forget that, our customers, we're also observing that trend that they're moving towards multi-cloud. They're trying to like rely less and less on just one cloud provider,
Yeah. Yes.
So
all that gymnastics I was talking about, that was just for one cloud provider. Imagine having to do that for 2, 3, and maybe even a 4th if you got some ancillary ones out there.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So when you have like multi-cloud and each cloud provider having their own mechanism, having their own way on how they generate the bills, publish the bills for let's say, for example, for GCP cloud provider, you got to understand how do you want to export the big queries. For AWS, current and usage reports, and so there are these different ways on how you can leverage to get the bills, and that's something like Turbonomic has really done a fantastic job here to seamlessly address all these different mechanisms to leverage the billing data from your different cloud providers, and seamlessly present that in the UI.
Yeah, I mean different ways of representing the data. It just from the portal that you go to look at it, and never mind what the mechanism is that you're going to pull that data out. If you're just going to export it from the portal, if you're going to do it via API, if you're going to some CLI command you're going to use, just getting it and having it in your hand it can be a challenge. From 1, 2, especially 3, and then it's not going to be in the same format. You're going to have different columns. You're going to have different in those columns. They're going to be representing different services. You can't tie all that into one spreadsheet very easily. So that is a huge challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So we have made our lives, like a customer users' life, easy. Like all they have to do is just add some permissions, provide us access to their billing data, and then just sit back and relax, and let Turbo do all the magic after that. Yeah.
And so there's a concept, and I know something that you've been working on in terms of, we talk about sort of making improvements to the way that we're pulling in costs for customers into Turbo today. And there's this phrase top-down billing. Maybe you can kind of touch on maybe what that is and how that compares to what I guess would be a more traditional sort of bottom-up approach, and sort of what those two things mean, and sort of why Turbo decided to go one way as opposed to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about it, there are really like 3 things data, people, and automation, right? So it's more like how we can put the right data in front of the right people in an automated way. And that's what our focus was. That's what when we started on this journey, that's what our focus was on, how we can present the data in a more consumable and easy way for our users to consume. And from this approach, we entirely are navigating towards going top down, where we are leveraging the cloud provider bills, pulling the data at regular intervals, at periodic intervals when the customers get their bills. So we leverage that, we get the core data and extract the meaningful information, insights that our users really are looking forward to get more informed on, so that we enable them to take the really the data-driven cloud spending decisions, right? We really want them to rule their cloud spending. And that's something we have been doing, and across the three major cloud providers that we support. And not just that, right? We also support the different in view of presenting the right data to the right people. We have different granularities levels or hierarchy levels that we support. Like, for example, if there is an executive who wants to understand what their cloud spend is, right? So they might be interested to learn about more on the high spend, like on a high level, like what's their cloud spend across all the three cloud providers or across individual cloud providers, and then potentially what they could do to, potentially what they can, is there anything that they could do to potentially save some amount? Let's say if you have an engineer or an app owner accessing Turbo, or they would want to be more informed on how are my apps performing? What's it's costing me to run those applications? What's the cost of the underlying infrastructure I'm using to run those apps, and could we optimize it potentially? So there are these different personas who would access and would gain different insights that they want to. So in this journey, in these changes that we made, we have presented these information in a way that different personas can get that information very easy to access. You can scope to different accounts, different services, to understand what are your cost trends for those services over a period of historical period of time, or over the different cost drivers that you would want to look into. And not just that, right? We have this famous the tag dictionaries. So that's something that our customers, we have seen across industry, which leverages a lot, that construct to logically group their cost. So that's something that we provided a seamless support on any, if the users, they want to really understand how their cost is behaving on a particular set of their tagged entities, then they could really leverage Turbo in doing that. So that's what, Joe, the top-down billing is. We get the data from your bills so that it's the right accurate data you would want to look at. It's meaningless if you're looking at inaccurate data, right? So
absolutely. And I also just point out that the theme of tagging comes up a lot in a lot of our different conversations, and just to point out the importance of tagging. A good tagging practice makes all the difference.
I think the important thing that you're saying there, Joe, is a good tagging practice, right?
Yep.
Two reasons why I think that's important. One, strategy. A good tagging strategy means nothing if you don't put it in place and keep putting it in place. And much like with the medical field, I say that they're always practicing medicine because they're always learning, right? They're always picking up what worked, what didn't work, reapplying it, reinforcing that continued to work, and that they would continue to use that strategy or that tactic that they used to solve whatever that problem was going forward. Same thing here with tagging practice. It's ever evolving. It's never perfect. It's never done, right? So you have to keep after it.
Yeah, much like optimization in general, yes. Right? It's good to have an optimization strategy, but unless you're putting it into practice and you're making it an optimization practice, you're really not achieving much. And again, to kind of bring it back to this conversation, that optimization really relies on, first and foremost, good information, right? And then in terms of the cloud, it's we need to have accurate billing information to then make decisions on what our optimization practice is going to be and what it's going to look like.
Because what's the alternative? Garbage in,
garbage out. That's it. Hey, you set them up, Greg. I knock them down. Easy.
That's right. Yeah,
easy.
We always finish each other's sentences, Vidushi.
That's good.
And in addition to that word practice, another P word that I heard you say a lot there, and to me is very important, is the word persona, right? There are going to be different perspectives associated with those personas that you have to be able to satisfy. An executive or a C-level individual at a specific customer or account isn't going to be interested in that granular level detail unless there's a reason to be, right? And that'll be a very specific occurrence or a very specific event that would cause them to be concerned about something at that engineer level, right? So they're going to want to see high level, have an understanding of what's going on, much the way that you were describing it. So those personas are important, and they exist everywhere, and we have to be able to cater to them as seamlessly as possible. So I'm glad that that's something that you're saying and that we're incorporating and understanding and having our product going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's mainly on the UI, right? Your UI should be such that it should be able to speak these different kind of languages that resonates with these different personas.
Yep. They get that aha moment when they see the data, the information that you're presenting in their perspective. It means something to them. It's translated, it's understandable, and it's consumable. Another word that I heard you use, quite a few times. So thank you. I appreciate your treatment on that.
So let me ask you, I guess, obviously, the CSPs, the cloud providers, right? They're always updating their offerings and the way that they sort of deliver data as well. And so obviously we need to be flexible, right? Because we work closely with them. So can you maybe talk about sort of the relationship that we have with these cloud providers and maybe some examples of updates that these providers have put out and sort of our ability to sort of adapt and still be able to work with and deliver value for our customers. I guess Azure comes to mind. I guess I'm kind of setting this up here, but
leading the witness.
Hey, leading the witness. Objection.
That's my favorite example as well, So yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey both for us as well as for our customers since last year. End of last year when Azure announced that they are moving away from the enterprise agreement APIs and they want their users, they want us to leverage their cost management APIs and really use their new tech behind it to get the billing data as seamlessly as possible. So that was a journey that we kind of followed on supporting these changes in their billing models, and for us, to understand this new technology that they're using behind it, leverage that and implement that in our product. And not just that, right? The biggest challenge was to have our customers, move from our enterprise agreement target to our Azure billing target, which now leverages that new APIs and more newer tech and newer ways of and more efficient ways of getting the data, right? So that was one of the journey that this year we had on having our users trying to convince them to migrate from EA to Azure billing target. And I would just say that if anybody is listening here, and if you haven't migrated yet to the Azure billing target, please do so.
Yeah. I think what is it? 886 was when we deprecated it in our product, and I think Microsoft is their latest target for when they're going to turn off their drop dead date for that Azure API. The reporting is May 1st, 2024.
Yeah.
Just some tidbits for you folks out there. If you're thinking about this or not thinking about it, understand those two things with relationship to our product.
But it is interesting though. It must be in some ways both nerve-wracking and maybe somewhat fun, right? Is constantly adapting, right? Because we have no control over what the providers do, right? But we do have a responsibility to our customers to be able to sort of adapt to meet the needs of whatever changes they roll out. And I think as a product, as a company, we do a really great job of getting right to it. Because ultimately, again, right, in order for us to deliver true value to our customers, we have to get good data and provide good data.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you and the team I know you guys work super hard on that. And I think it's working great so far. So
highly adaptable, highly flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Good work, team.
Good work, team. Hopefully you got some blue points for it. We'll send you some we'll send you some blue
I'm gonna
points
go and
after.
check them.
So, again, and this is something that we kind of chatted about with Kevin, but I'm, curious to kind of get your take on this whole concept of FinOps, because obviously, specific to what we're talking about right now about, billing data and that good information, right? I mean, in the context of FinOps, right, that's really sort of like the first stop, right? The first stool or the first leg of the stool, right? This whole idea of the inform phase. So, I mean, how do you see like Turbo, how do you see Turbo positioned in the sort of the overall FinOps space? And I guess maybe, how do you see it kind of progressing? I guess if you had a magic wand and could sort of make it so right now, I guess what would you see us doing down the road as well?
I'm still trying to figure out what do you mean if she had a magic wand. I mean, she's
Listen,
got a magic wand.
it's true. This is true. That's fair. But yeah, I mean, I guess, just your opinion, obviously. Like where do you think we are today, and how do we fit in this big picture?
Absolutely. So what we have been discussing so far about around the bills and making them easy to consume for our customers, that's really like focuses the first, like you said, first leg of the stool, right? Like, so basically that's the inform pillar of the FinOps. So we have been like focusing this year a lot into really getting to solve a majority of the use cases. And one of the features that I would, one of the other important concept that this inform phase has is around the savings, the ability for our users to understand their tangible benefits, what they have achieved as a result of taking the cost optimization actions, right? That's something that I would also touch up, that we have been investing a lot to solve those use cases for our users, right? I mean, we can talk about that in a bit, but so from your last show with Kevin Lamb, right? Like our FinOps guru. So we understood like what, like we chatted and talked about like what FinOps is really, right? The three legs of the stool. So the inform capability is something that we already touched throughout this show. We have been like working a lot in having a strong foundation laid down for our users so that they can just get the core data that they want to view as easy as possible. And then really take those insights, take those informed decisions, and work on their second phase, which is technically the optimized phase of FinOps, right? And we know, like predominantly, we had an extremely strong hold on that phase, right? Just name it, right sizing, handling the different discounts our cloud providers have, like, reserved instances, reservations, even committed use discounts, like across the three cloud providers. And now savings plans that's coming up. So we really like handle those use cases pretty in a solid way, right? And not just that, right? We focus a lot on our PaaS services, on our volumes and so on. So we have a pretty good hold on that optimization phase already, and we continue to like work more and more on it to provide more opportunities for our users where they could eliminate the waste and kind of safely reduce the cost. We always say that the intention is not to reduce the cost. The intention is to just spend exactly on what you're consuming and not what you're allocating, right? So that's something. And then the third phase is the operate phase. Like once the users, they get the insights on their informed, like where they inform themselves on where they are spending, what they can do on the various opportunities to eliminate over provisioning, to eliminate the wastage, then they really operationalize on that. They execute the actions and take these different or adopt the different cost optimization strategies. And then ultimately all this binds together is back to the inform phase where the user really understands what's the impact that they have achieved as a result of taking those cloud actions or optimization strategies that they have adopted. And that's where the savings getting an insight into the savings that the customers have realized plays a big role.
Yeah, I think very important and near and dear to my heart is that idea of continuous improvement, right? That feedback loop where not only are you doing something, not only have you planned to do something, or you're informing somebody that you're doing something, but you're looking back on it and reflecting on it, and reincorporating those results into the process you've got to improve it. Would you say that's what that operate phase is all about?
Yeah, I mean, the operate phase is where you actually bring all the other two phases into an operationalized way, on where, you can be informed, take those actions, and then ultimately it ties it back again to the informed phase in a way where you realize like the impact of what is happening as a result of taking those actions.
Yeah, because otherwise, and I'm going to use one of my favorite expressions. It feels like herding cats, right? You've got a dozen, let's just say a dozen people working to optimize cloud spend, or working to deploy cloud services, or just governance of cloud overall. And they're all off doing individual tasks. 12 different tasks getting done maybe at 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, whatever it is. How are you capturing that the intent was to go and reduce spend, or the intent was to go to right size a workload, or to buy a discount, and then tie that back to actual outcome that you got, right? Either savings or performance enhancements, or SLAs that were met, or whatever your outcome or your objective is. So the idea of I intend to do something, I did something, I've recorded and measured it, and now I understand that was the right thing to do, and now I've incorporated this again back into my practice to say that this was the right thing to do, we should continue to do that, or it was the wrong thing to do, oops, don't do that again, understand that. So it's not just informing yourself about the cost, it's not just informing yourself about the workloads of the services, but also the practice that you've applied, and whether that was the right thing to do or not. Do you consider that to be part of that operate phase, or that's just a feedback into the inform phase?
It's a part of both, like the operate phase as well as the inform phase, because in the inform phase is where you actually track what your savings or investments, as an example, like depending on how you want to move your workloads, or based on how the demand is changing, and then you realize that as a part of the inform phase, basically the trends on what your cloud spend is or changing as per that. So I really famously use that example. So let's say that you are on your weight loss journey, right? And okay, anyone who needs your more is me, but just imagine that you're on a weight loss journey and you don't have a weight.
I'll go ahead and imagine being on a weight loss journey.
And you don't have a weighing machine.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh, right. So it's like, no matter what you're following, a keto diet, animal, carnivore diet, whatsoever, but you need to measure the impact of your efforts at different intervals to make sure that you're on the right track, right? Otherwise, you're just flying blind.
Yeah, so I think it's important to have success criteria, number one, right? Why are you trying to do something? What's the point? What is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? Because without that, you can't get everybody in line. You can't have people understanding what that objective is, and you will get those 12 different people going off in 12 different directions and potentially doing more harm than good.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you put that in the context of FinOps, right? Like, we need clarity, or the users, they're looking for clarity, they're looking for transparency into what they're really having the tangible benefits that they're achieving as a result of buying different discounts, or as a result of adopting the various different cloud strategies.
Yeah.
So it's more like putting a quantitative lens to your FinOps practices or FinOps journey.
Those are good words, Joe. Remember those for the
description. I've written those down already. Yeah.
Tangible.
I like these ones. I like it. That's going on a t-shirt, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
I like it.
You see, it's happening.
You mentioned something interesting too. It was just kind of in passing, but it's not really necessarily about, saving money or spending less. It's about just not spending more than you absolutely have to, right? And I guess this is something that I kind of run into a lot in my experience with prospects, with customers, is, there's obviously this urge to kind of frame it as, I want to save money in the cloud, which is fair. Everyone should want to, not spend more than they have to. But again, it's almost it's always interesting to try to help customers kind of reframe this thought process a little bit, because ultimately, right, and we know this because we're all turbos, and this has kind of been beat into us essentially, is that like it's not really just about saving money, right? It's ultimately saving money is great, but it should be a byproduct of performance, right?
Balance.
And I think that's where Turbo is uniquely positioned, right? Because there's a million tools on the market that purport that they can save you X amount of dollars in the cloud, but there's no mention of performance, right? And it's really that piece of assuring performance at the lowest possible cost that I think really lends that sort of legitimacy to what we do versus maybe what anyone else does, because it's that level of trust that you build, right? Knowing that, yes, I save money, but in no way did I put my performance at risk, right? Because I think we work with a gentleman that's been a Turbo a long time, Oved. I think he'll be on the show at some point. But he has, a very famous line, essentially. That's, hey, if you want to save money in the cloud, it's really simple, right? You just scale everything to a T2 micro, and then you get a reserved instance to cover it. And congratulations, you have won the game. You've saved every dollar in the cloud. And then people laugh, and it's obviously ridious.
I appreciate using that example, because if you didn't, it was coming from.
Yeah. But I think like it's hyperbole, but still it kind of helps people to understand and sort of reframe this idea of cost savings in the cloud, right? It can't be one or the other. It's constantly striking this balance, this give and take between the two.
Yeah.
And again, starting again, kind of tie this back to where we began, right? It's important for us to have good data to begin with, right? To understand what we're spending, and then tracking that over time, and understanding that the decisions we're giving you to save money are also assuring the performance first and foremost. And it's really that sort of complete package that you and the team have worked hard on to help develop. And so kudos again to you guys.
Just going to say, Joe, you just reiterated the thing that Vidushi said at the very beginning of this with two words, and they were separated, but she used them together, which was data-driven decisions.
Right.
If you're not making decisions based on the data that's coming from whatever measurements you're making, then you're going to be flying blind, right? You're going to go eat that ring ding and not know that threw a pound on you, right? Because you aren't measuring it. So the data-driven decisions are important. And I appreciate you guys both actually quoting that today, whether it was together and coherent like Vidushi said, or thrown
all over
together
the place like I said it.
like Joe said it. You both got to the point, and I appreciate that.
Much appreciated. Thank you. So Vidushi, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're still working on a bunch of other stuff, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so you can say if you want, totally fine. But I know that you guys are working on supporting a lot of other features for the public cloud in terms of optimization. Are there any specific things that you guys are working on now that you're kind of maybe especially excited for, or looking forward to, or think will provide a lot of value for our customers? Any sneak peek? Or again, I don't want to put you on the spot. And everyone's going to watch this video and say, nope, Vidushi said it's happening, so it has to happen.
Everyone is going to watch this. Just remember that.
Yeah, everyone. But disclaimer, these are, this is just a hypothetical. Yeah. But anything like in particular that you're working on now that you're kind of really excited about?
I would just say that, one of my favorite features that we are starting to look into is supporting AWS savings plans. So that's something. Stay tuned. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's all we get. That's totally fine. It's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that as well, to be honest.
I'm hungry for it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
It's gonna be great. Well, again, Vidushi, again, you're super busy, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Super busy working on the right things, though, right?
But no, it's always great to chat with you, and I know we chat, off podcast all the time. So
yeah,
no, it's always great to get a chance to connect. So
yeah, it's good to have you on here and help evangelize the work that you're doing, and put a face to behind the spectacular product and the features that y'all are putting out.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here, and I really enjoyed like chatting with you guys.
Great.
Appreciate it. Don't forget to
Cool.
tell your friends, Vidushi, to like and subscribe.
Yes.
Ring the notification bell.
Smash
And that goes for everyone watching this, by the way. Don't
right.
forget, shameless plug, like, subscribe, share, comment, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. And as always, we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for watching. For more great information on all things Turbo, check out our community page on the IBM website. And with that, we'll see you all on the next one.
Yep.
Guys.
Take it easy.